Hey YouTube, coming at you with another stage breakdown. This was a stage from the last match that I shot, which was a little over 3 weeks ago. I'll be shooting the same match this upcoming Sunday. I'm pretty excited about that. This was a 26 round stage. It was the third stage of the day. I shot this stage pretty well. Let me throw some numbers at you. So the Carry Optics stage winner was a GM. He shot this stage in 19.14 seconds for a hit factor of 6.3. He had 22 alphas, 3 Charlies, 1 Delta. I came in sixth place, shot it at 88% of his score. Time was 21.73 seconds for a hit factor of 5.5. I shot 21 alphas, 5 Charlies. So as I said, I shot this pretty well, and I decided to do the stage breakdown on this stage just to show that even on this better performing stage for me, there are some areas where I can definitely improve to shave time and improve my hit factor. So I'm going to go ahead and let the stage run, and then I'll break it down afterwards. So the start position on this stage was standing anywhere outside of the shooting area. There was no real way to get around having to run up range on this stage or move up range. It was a pretty technical stage from that perspective, from a movement perspective. Again, I did fairly well on this stage. It was one of my stronger stages this day, but there were definitely some things that I think I could change or improve on to shave mostly time to increase my hit factor. The first thing is more around movement. And I've been talking about this very recently in some videos that I shared in the way that I've been approaching training and also just a shift in the way that I'm thinking about stages and moving within the stage. So one of the things that I mentioned is really looking at um, like movement or the different arrays as transitions and using movement to open up targets so that I can transition onto them rather than looking at them or looking at movement as different positions or getting into those positions. And again, this is more from a perspective of having my movement be more fluid and flowy, if that's a word, but flowing through a stage with my gun up and just shooting sooner onto targets. So this stage was a perfect example in certain areas. Obviously, there were some arrays that were hidden behind cover that you had to kind of get into, like the ones in the middle, which there was not it's not a stage that's very like flowy because of that, right? This on the left side, I think I did fairly well. And aside from another thing that I'll talk about in a second, but um, here I moved very well. This I was very happy with here where I just transition straight across and I shoot it as I'm backing out, look to where I want to end up. I get into this position. I did fumble the reload a little bit, so I should have gotten done with the reload about here, and it would have allowed me to start aiming down sights and onto that tux a lot sooner, and I probably could have started shooting that tux sooner than I did. But aside from that, it was okay. It's here where I think if I were to approach this a little bit differently and more as just one series of transitions on this right side, I would have gotten through this area a lot sooner. So if you notice here, I come in, I shoot this target, and I immediately drop the gun down to kind of burst out of this position. and then I bring the gun back up. And what ends up happening is I actually overran this position a bit. See, I have to kind of stutter step and come back and shoot this target. And then I do the same thing again. I drop the gun to kind of burst out and bring the gun up and start shooting. So one of the things that I would love to be able to try if I were to shoot this stage again is, rather than doing all of this aggressive movement here, is I would have shot this target and then immediately just transitioned and shot this next target. I think I would have gotten onto target sooner, which means I would have finished shooting this target sooner and then transitioned just straight to the left and shot this next target. And then again, transitioned onto this third target and then the last target. So back to what I was mentioning earlier is looking at this as one giant array and thinking about transitioning onto each target and using movement to open up those targets so that I can transition onto them, and not necessarily thinking about, oh, these are separate positions and I need to burst into each position very aggressively so that I can get there and start shooting sooner. I don't think this aggressive movement here was at all necessary. I think I could have just, again, moved, flowed through these positions with my gun up, just transitioning across to each target, and probably would have gotten through this section a lot sooner than I did, because it wouldn't have been as much, bring the gun down, bring it back up, start to aim, shoot. Bring the gun down, bring it back up, start to aim, shoot. So hopefully that makes sense. It definitely makes sense to me. Again, this is an experiment. This is something that I'm working through. I've really only applied this so far in training. I'm pretty excited about this next match that's coming up on Sunday, and I'm going to try to apply this construct or this methodology, this way of thinking, to my stage planning and my rehearsal, and we'll see how it goes. So the other thing that I notice, and I'm going to jump to the first person, which you'll be able to see it a little bit better here. And I'm going to let the video run through in first person, and then I'll come back and talk through it a little bit. So the other issue that I'm referring to is transitions, has to do with transitions. I think my transitions aren't as snappy as they could be. And more specifically, I think what's happening is I'm over confirming on the second shot. I'm allowing my eyes to dwell on the target, and I think I'm looking for holes in the target to confirm that I got my hits. So this target was fine. You can see immediately I transition over. Here, you'll notice, you notice I waited. So like here's the first shot, second shot, gun comes back down from recoil, and then that's when I start to transition. And I think if I look back, I do recall looking for the hole in the target rather than just calling the shot from where my sight was, my dot was when I broke it, right? That's costing me time for sure. I do it again. I don't remember if it's this target. That one was okay. This one is definitely okay. It's in this middle section where I overconfirm, I think, on all three of these targets. So here, boom. See, the gun comes back down, and that's when I start to transition. Here again, boom, boom, gun comes back down, then I start to transition. Here, 100%, I know that I saw the hole, and I wasn't sure if it was on the edge, and I sent a third shot. So I'm not, even though I sent a third shot here, it wasn't really shot calling. It was I was seeing the hole in the target and I was sending another shot based on that hole. Um, so this is definitely costing me time because if you think about it, the rest of this I think is pretty good. Even this target here, you can see I start to transition as the gun was coming up. Same here. And then I took a makeup shot here. And I think definitely on this last target, that makeup was definitely based on where I saw the dot when I fired my first shot. So I was making up the first shot, not the second shot. But again, if you think about it, that was at least 3, maybe 4 transitions where I dwelled on the target, and that's costing me at least a tenth of a second, if not 2/10 of a second. So if you figure 4 targets, multiply that by 2/10 of a second, that's almost a full second that I'm losing um, by over confirming and just having my eyesight dwell on the target looking for holes. It's just slowing me down quite a bit. And I honestly think it's probably slowing me down in more than 2/10 of a second per target. So that's something that I have to be more conscious about um, when I'm doing my walkthrough. And that's what I've noticed in training. If I visualize my transitions and I visualize transitioning on the break and I make sure that during the rehearsal I'm thinking about that transition, that hey, as soon as I break the shot, I'm going to transition onto the next target if I call a good shot. If I do that, when I do that in training, I find that I don't have this problem and my transitions are much faster. They're much snappier. So again, those are the two things that I identified in this stage that I think would have improved my overall hit factor by reducing time. And who knows, maybe my hits would have been a little bit better. Maybe I would have dropped one less Charlie or a couple less Charlies. Had I flowed, especially on that right side, had I flowed through the stage rather than, dropping my gun and coming back up. Because again, that's a transition. Every time you drop the gun and you have to bring it back up and start aiming down sights, that's a transition. That's an additional transition that I'm adding to the stage, right? So again, that's the thought process. Those are the things that I'm thinking about now more consciously in training, and then also hopefully this Sunday as I'm rehearsing my stages and walking through and planning my stages, that I use this conscious thought, these cues, um, to improve my stage performance. So that's about it. That wraps up this another stage breakdown. Hopefully that all made sense. I think it all makes sense to me. Um, but these are the things that I'm going to try and apply on this next match that I have on Sunday, and then we'll see how it goes. So stay tuned, guys. As always, I appreciate all the subs, all the likes, and if you have any questions, definitely throw them down in the comments, and I try to respond to every one of them. So again, appreciate you guys. Thanks.